This movie's about a mutant who refuses to get on a shirt. It's called Pac Pond and it's pretty heat. I watched it back when it first came out and I thought it was pretty cool. So for the first time in some time, we'll be going over something that's actually worth watching. The movie starts out with a song playing while it shows a bunch of guys getting crammed in a blunt. Then it shows the main character, Pac Pond, getting in a rando cab and talking to the driver cause he's heard over the fact that his wife is leaving him in favor of a superior model. So Pond encourages him not to let his feelings for his wife go because something about true love, whatever. Then Pond tells the taxi driver why he's wearing a Spider-Guy ripoff costume, and it's cause the guy he's trying to murk did him dirty. Then there's some scene where some guy hoses another guy over something, I guess. After that, Pond realizes he forgot something, but it's too late now, so he just tells the taxi driver to pull over, but he also doesn't have the funds, so the taxi guy's just gonna have to hold that L. So Pond has a little talk with the audience to discuss how he managed to get a movie by doing the most behind the scenes. Then he pulls up on the ops and engages in a long jihad with them that ends with him in the same situation as he was in the beginning of the movie. While this is going out, some guy made out of chrome is watching TV, so he calls his emo girl a companion because he's trying to make Pond a member of his squad. Back to Pond's points of view, he's still hoeing niggas left and right and letting it be known he might as well have superpowers the way he's treating them. After getting rid of these bums, Pond starts telling the regular viewers how he got to this point, and it goes back in time to when he looks like a regular person, and we see him pressing a lame to get off a random girl's ass. After violating him, Pond goes to the girl and lets her know that the lame has been dealt with, and she's really feeling Pond because of it, but he then tells her and the viewer that he's actually a threat to society that takes care of worse threats, because it turns out he's a hired assassin, and he goes to some bar to talk to his friend, and he decides to instigate a conflict between some randos, because I guess he's a psycho, but it turns out he did it because the niggas at this establishment are so sick in the head that they hold wagers to see who's gonna be on a pack, and they call it the Pac Pond, you know, like the main character's name. You know, origin story. Then it turns out the friend actually betted that Pond will be on his shirt because he's fake. And Pond is hurt over that, but not really, because not too much to dwell on, I guess. Then some woman shows up, and she gets disrespected by the guy that Pond provoked earlier, but she grabs him by the scrotum and makes him pussy out, which gets Pond's attention. Then they debate about which one of them had the worst life, and now Pond has a full-fledged hard-on for her, so they go out and start playing games, you know, cause comedy movie. But then they actually start piping, because of course they do. So it shows a scene of them doing all kinds of things together, because now they're getting close. After enough time, Pond starts talking to her, and then he proposes and she accepts, so major W's all around. But then when he gets up to do something, he ends up collapsing, and when he wakes up, it turns out he has cancer, so some of those W's might have to be rescinded. Then it cuts back to the present, and Pond is still looking for the op. He manages to find him, and then he gives him the beats, and tells him that his time has come for what he's done. But then that chrome guy shows up, and stops him from administering justice. After that, it cuts back to the past, where Pond is trying to leave his wife, so she doesn't go outside with him, but she refuses to leave him in the dust, because she's a real one, so he decides to stay on. Then he goes to the bar, and talks to his friend about it, and the friend offers very minimal support, but he does direct him to some guy, who tells him he can get rid of the disease, and also give him powers if he goes with him, and Pond agrees because he might as well at this point. After thinking about not at the offer, Pond decides to go because he doesn't want his wife to have to deal with him like this. Then back in the present, the chrome guy is getting on Pond's ass for using his powers like that. Then Pond starts talking wild to the chrome guy and the emo girl, so the chrome guy tells him to stop tweaking and just join their clique. When Pond looks back for his op, he sees that he's escaped, which puts him in his feelings, so he tries to throw hands with the chrome guy, but it doesn't work out because he's OP. So Pond just ends up breaking himself, and the chrome guy tries to abduct him, so Pond cuts his own hand off in order to escape from him. Back in the past, Pond is going through an experiment to get rid of the cancer, and someone was there to hold him down, and he's talking wild to her. So the op shows up, and he gives him the stuff, and tells him he's not gonna feel it right, but Pond is still playing games. So the op leaves him to the woman to get hurt. Over the course of some time, Pond is put through the most in order for the powers to take effect. Then there's a scene where he talks to some other guy in the program about what they're doing this all for. Then the op pulls through to get on the other guy's ass, and Pond exposes the op's real name, which has the op feeling some type of way. So he tells him to stop burning his mouth, and says that he can always make things more difficult for him. So the op puts Pond in a tube, where he's going to be fucking him over in the worst way he could, and also lets him know that once the powers kick in, he's going to be sold to some army guys to commit war crimes. So this has all been for nothing. After some time in the tube, he ends up with his skin ruined. Then when the op goes back to check on him, he tells him that his cancer is cured. So the woman tries to do something, but she gets assaulted. Then the op presses Pond by his name, and he doesn't have anything to say, so he locks him back in the tube. But it turns out he took a match from the woman and used it to make a fire next to the oxygen holes, which gave him opportunity to emancipate himself and catch a fit with the op. But the op ends up coming out on top, and Pond watches as that guy he was talking to earlier just left on the floor while the room is burning. Later on, it turns out that Pond survived and is getting disrespected on the street because of how he looks, so he goes to meet up with his friends to tell him how things are. And after the friend sees his face, much like earlier, he provides very little support and continues the disrespect. So as we see, Pond has a great choice in allies. Then they decide that Pond should go around hunting niggas that might be connected to the op and forcing them to tell him where the op is, and that he should get a costume to hide his identity. And he decides to name himself after the pack pond, where sickos gamble over lives. Then it shows a scene of him making the costume and holding niggas left and right in order to get some leads on the op. After that, he runs up on that guy that told him about the opportunity in the first place, and he makes him tell him where the op is before putting him on the news. Then he meets up with the taxi driver from the beginning, and now it cuts to the present because now the story has caught up, and he's living with some blind woman, and she fails to build a shelf, so he gets on her ass for it because he's hurt over the fact that he let the op slip away. So in some other place, the op and the woman are scheming against Pond, and they decide that they have to get rid of him. So there's some scene where Pond and the blind woman are talking about how he should go to his wife somewhere else. The op and the woman pull up on the friend's bar and press him about Pond, but he denies knowing him. So the woman looks like she's about to do something, and the whole bar pulls their sticks out like they're at a gun rally, so she and the op have to retreat. Then their friend calls up Pond and lets him know that his wife is in danger, because now the op knows where he used to chill at. So they go looking for her at a club, but while at the club, some rando tells her that Pond wants to see her outside, but it's not the op that set it up, and she gets finessed by him and the woman, and when Pond finds out, he starts tweaking. So the friend tells Pond that the op says he wants to meet him, so Pond purchases all the artillery he needs from the friend. Then Pond packs up and gets his stuff in order to meet up with the op. Then the op is talking to Pond's wife and tells her that he's gonna do her dirty to get at Pond. So Pond meets up with the emo girl and tells her that she and the chrome guy are responsible for the op escaping, so they have to help Pond get him out of the way. So they all get in the same taxi as earlier, where the driver said he took Pond's advice and got the guy who took his wife tied up in the trunk, and being the detriment that he is, Pond encourages this, but he has to frolic like he does in front of the chrome guy and the emo. Then when they get dropped off at the location, they do a slow walk, but it turns out that Pond forgot his bag at the taxi. When the driver goes to pick up his phone, he gets in an accident, so that's an L. So the op reveals himself and sends the woman to do what needs to be done, and she's so strong, she gets the chrome guy sent back, so the emo has to step up and push her. Then all the bums start dumping shells, the woman and the chrome guy throw hands, and Pond gives the bums a chance to surrender, but they refuse, so he ends up murking them with a sword, and also the emo gets some of them out of the way too. Pond comes across that one guy he met before, but that doesn't stop him from getting him out of the way. Also, there's a scene where the chrome guy sees too much of the woman and makes it more difficult than it needs to be. Eventually, the op shows himself again, and Pond wrote his name with a bunch of packs, so the op has even more bums waste their shells. So the emo gives Pond the boost to get on the same level as the op. Once he gets there, he finds that the op has his wife in the same tube that he was in, and the op catches a fade with Pond over her. But during the fade, the wife manages to escape and uses a sword to poke the op. The emo girl pulls up to save the chrome guy from the woman, and it ends up causing an explosion where Pond, his wife, and the op all get taken out of the top part of the ship. But it looks like they're all safe, so that's cool. And the op pops out the cut to throw her hands one last time, but Pond hosts him and tells him that it's time to give him medical attention. But the op lets him know that he's stuck like this forever. But before Pond gets him to the next dimension, the chrome guy tries to stall progress by giving him some speech about being a hero, but Pond isn't trying to hear all that, so he just airs it out and gets rid of the op. So the wife is hurt that Pond abandoned her, and he tells her what's been happening, so she takes off his mask and sees him how he really is, and she lets him know that it doesn't have to be over between them, and Pond tells the chrome guy and the emo girl to get lost, and the movie ends with Pond and the wife making out. It wasn't as funny as I remembered, but I still wouldn't remotely call it trash. Like, the humor served its purpose. The moral of the story is that if randos offer you an opportunity to have a giant come up, they might really be intending to do you cuts. Okay guys, make sure that when you subscribe you hit the notification button, because that lets you know whenever I make a new video, and as always, thanks for watching.